What's happening, Bills Mafia, Sabres fans, Sabres Nation, Bills Nation? Ryan Thomas here, back for another episode of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, and this isn't just any other episode. I got a ton to cover in this edition of the show. The Buffalo Sports Bonanza is what I'm going to call it. It was something that popped into my head as I was putting this show together, and it stuck, so I'm going with it. The title of this show, the Buffalo Sports Bonanza, covering all things Buffalo Bills as well as the Buffalo Sabres. A lot of news to dive into. First, we'll start off with the positive stuff, that the Buffalo Bills have signed wide receiver Emmanuel Sanders and punter Matt Hack. So an upgrade there at the punter position. Isn't an upgrade. A lot of people on Bills Twitter are debating that, going from Corey Boriquez to Matt Hack. We'll see what happens as we get closer and closer to training camp and how training camp plays itself out. We'll see what happens there. But those are two signings that the Buffalo Bills have made. The Buffalo Bills signing Emmanuel Sanders. And when I heard the news of this signing, it was a very pleasant surprise. Going into the signing of the Buffalo Bills signing of Emmanuel Sanders, I have to say that this is a great move, I think, by Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott to bring in who I believe is a pros pro. Pardon my phone ringer there. A pros pro. Emmanuel Sanders has seen it all. He's experienced it all. He has played on the Steelers with Big Ben. He has played on the Broncos with Peyton Manning. He's played with the San Francisco 49ers and Jimmy Garoppolo. And he's played with, obviously, Drew Brees, the recently retired Drew Brees. So now for Emmanuel Sanders to decide, hey, I'm going to sign on the bottom line of this contract and join the Buffalo Bills, I think it says a lot about where the Buffalo Bills are at as far as attracting the pros type players, the guys that are the veteran leaders. And what a signing like this does for a player like Gabe Davis, bringing in an Emmanuel Sanders type wide receiver is going to do a lot for this wide receiver room. That can't be understated or overstated enough. Emmanuel Sanders has been a receiver that has been reliable. He's been able to catch everything and anything thrown to him, and he's a solid route runner. I really like how he will fit in with this offense. I think Brian Daboll's going to use him in a lot of different ways. And as far as, you look at the receivers on this roster, they can run any which route. They can be used any which way. They provide a lot of versatility within this offense. So I think we saw that in spades last year. And that's why they were so successful passing the football. You can move Cole Beasley on the outside, inside. You'd rather have Cole Beasley as a slot guy, but Emmanuel Sanders, you can use him any which way. He's essentially a Swiss Army knife of a wide receiver that I think is, dare I say, as a well-rounded receiver. Emmanuel Sanders is more of an upgrade to John Brown, where John Brown is known as a speed guy. Emmanuel Sanders is known as just a well-rounded wide receiver. And I think that, that was a solid move by the Buffalo Bills here to bring in a player of his caliber. And I think that this is going to be a very fun addition. You look at the fact as well that Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley played together in college at SMU. And that is part of what this process has become. It's become a mutual respect type process where you bring in veteran players like Cole Beasley, you bring in veteran players like John Brown. Well, when one of those guys goes, John Brown out of the building now, you bring in a veteran to replace him and a guy that has a mutual connection to this team in Cole Beasley. So I think that that's really cool. I'm extremely excited to see Emmanuel Sanders suit up for the Buffalo Bills, and I think that this is going to be a very welcomed and fun addition to this offense and to this team more than anything. Moving forward, there are a lot of rumblings out there that the Bills are very interested in adding to the tight end position, and Brandon Beane kind of made that known in the, postseason, end-of-season recap press conference that they're going to look to improve in all areas, offensively and defensively, and they're doing that by adding an Emmanuel Sanders-type player. But the tight end position has been a hot topic for Buffalo Bills fans. I've talked about it in terms of what I expect with Dawson Knox. Obviously Lee Smith was just traded as well to the Atlanta Falcons, which Brandon Beane, a huge feather in his cap, being able to trade Lee Smith for anything, let alone a conditional pick. I'm curious to see what now happens now that we have a vacancy at the tight end position, a guy that Bills Mafia is talking about quite often is Zach Ertz. I'm very curious to see what happens with him, where he goes. I would hope that Buffalo is high on his list. I would hope that we have reason to believe that Buffalo is a team that's on everyone's list. Any free agent should be interested in coming here due to the fact that we had that 13-3 season and that we are a rejuvenated group, and that this team is headed in the right direction. And what's going to be so fascinating about this show is that we are in two completely opposite landscapes in terms of being Buffalo sports fans. On one hand, you have the Buffalo Bills, who everybody is excited about, and we have reason to feel like we are really on the doorstep of something special, possibly winning our first Super Bowl championship in franchise history in the coming years. That's what I expect. I don't know about you guys, but I think I can speak for a majority of the fan base feeling like, yeah, we're headed in the right direction. But you go to the other end of the spectrum with the Buffalo Sabres, and you say to yourself, holy crap. I mean, this is dysfunction at its finest in terms of where we are at as a hockey team. And, to have the Bills bringing this positive news and the Sabres kind of just causing us to roll our eyes, I'm going to dive into both ends of the spectrum in this show. So right now, for now, I'm talking about Emmanuel Sanders and punter Matt Hack, diving into the punter situation here at One Bills Drive. I liked some things that Corey Bojorquez did last season. On the surface of things, statistically, he had a very solid year, but it never seemed like Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott were fully, gung-ho, I guess you could say, in regards to what Bojorquez brought to the table. And they wanted a more reliable option, I guess, that is more of a solid pedigree. And that's what Matt Hack represents. He's been a solid punter over the course of his career there in Miami. And, punting in Miami is a lot different than punting in Buffalo. So hopefully, they made the right move there. They signed him to a multi-year deal, 3-year deal for Matt Hack. And hopefully, that whole situation works itself out. If you got comments, feel free to throw them down. Greatly appreciate the interaction and the love and support from Bills Mafia and Sabres Nation. So let's get right to it. Let's get right into this. Moving on from the Buffalo Bills discussion, I expect to be talking about the Bills, obviously, on this podcast a lot more often than I already do, but I expect a lot of moves to take place in the next 48 hours for the Buffalo Bills. Maybe not, 7 or 8 moves, but probably 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe moves along the way that I will cover, of course, on the Thomas Take Sports podcast for everybody to tune into. So those are 2 moves that we have to bring up at the start of the show: Emmanuel Sanders and punter Matt Hack. I'm excited about both of these additions. I think that Emmanuel Sanders has always been a receiver that I've been a fan of. Every stop, he has been a key contributor to every team that he's played for, and I expect no different, no less than Emmanuel Sanders coming here and putting his best foot forward and being a key contributor to this Buffalo Bills team. Josh McAvaney says, "I hope McKenzie is signed back today." I love Isaiah McKenzie. I loved what he brought to the table, especially at that tail end of the season against Miami. What he did in that game was pretty honorable, pretty awesome. So I'm excited to see. Hopefully he does make that return to Buffalo. I would like to have him here. We'll see what happens. So Josh, thanks for the comment. Folks, you can feel free to fire away your comments in the comment section below. Fire them away. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Ryan Thomas Take. Subscribe on YouTube and like the Facebook page, the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I greatly appreciate the love and support. I got a lot of awesome guests coming up in the next coming weeks, in the next few weeks. Today, riding solo. Wednesday, March 17th. Happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody out there. I'll be celebrating the holiday, of course, throughout the day today. So Ryan Thomas here on the mic, Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Moving forward, other big news in the world of Buffalo sports. The Buffalo Sabres announced this morning that they have fired head coach Ralph Krueger now the former head coach of the Buffalo Sabres, and Don Granato, Matt Ellis, and Dan Girardi will take the reins as far as the interim head coach and interim assistant coaches for the Buffalo Sabres. And the other day I posted a really long show on the Sabres and what my thoughts were on the Sabres and the state of the team. And, this news, I can't say I'm shocked in the slightest of ways in regards to this news. I'm not stunned, to say the least, that the Buffalo Sabres have decided to let go of Ralph Krueger. I'm more so, when these decisions are made and these, decisions are concluded by those in charge, whether it's, Terry Pegula, Kim Pegula, Kevin Adams. Well, they come to these decisions, and it's I'm glad they fired Ralph Krueger. I'd never root for someone to lose their job, but the team was not responding to him. They were not winning. They've lost 12 straight. The system wasn't working, clearly. It was time to move on. It was time to do something else, time to change things up. And anytime you come to a decision like this, and you're seeing this from a perspective of a fan, as I am, and also knowing that I would talk about this today on the podcast, it's bittersweet. It's he deserved to be fired, but my organization, team that I've rooted for since I was a little kid, got it wrong again. This is yet another head coach that has came and went since the days of Lindy Ruff, which seem so long ago, given the amount of coaches that have come in and out of the building at Seymour Knox Plaza. Dan Bilesma, Ted Nolan, Ted Nolan. I'll go back. Ron Rolston, Ted Nolan, Dan Bilesma, Phil Housley, Ralph Krueger. This is a revolving door at what needs to be a solid, consistent position within an organization. You have to have leadership from the top. You have to have a solid coach that players can come to respect. And what that means is we not in the sense that the players have said, we like Ralph Krueger, we like him. The coach doesn't necessarily have to be somebody you like. It has to be somebody that you respect. There's a big difference there. If you like a coach, that could be great. It could mean you respect him, but it could also mean that maybe the coach isn't hard enough on these players. Maybe the coach is not asking enough out of these players for them to fully respect what he is asking of them. And it's safe to say that for as much of a failure as Ralph Krueger was as a head coach of the Buffalo Sabres, the players need to take ownership of this decision as well. The players let Ralph Krueger down. If they liked him as much as they said they did, and they said they liked him a lot, locker cleanouts, post-game interviews, pre-game interviews. Oh, we love Ralph Krueger. Heading into this season, that's all Jack Eichel really seemed to talk about is how much he liked Ralph Krueger. And it didn't lead to any positive results. It led to a dumpster fire of a season, an embarrassment of a season, and a season that, no Sabres fan should ever want to remember. A season that Sabres fans are left reeling and feeling like, is this team ever going to get better? Is this team ever going to go from point A to point B as far as mediocrity to success? Not even just mediocrity. At this point, it is a completely just befuddled experience to be a Buffalo Sabres fan. They have tried everything, and nothing has worked. Obviously, you can't give up. You got to keep pushing forward. So with that question comes, what's next for the Buffalo Sabres? Who's next for the Buffalo Sabres? And I think within that discussion, it's, the search for a head coach continues. What coaches do I like? Who do I like? Well, I think that, my opening tweet this morning at Ryan Thomas Take says a ton about what I want as far as who should be the next head coach of the Buffalo Sabres. Bruce Boudreau is the guy that I really like. He coached for the Washington Capitals. He coached for the Minnesota Wild. He had success with both of those hockey clubs, 40-win seasons, 50-win seasons, maximizing the talent that was on both of those rosters. That is what has lacked as far as head coaches coming into Buffalo as Sabres head coaches. They haven't been able to maximize the talent that we have. And I think Bruce Boudreau can do that. We need a head coach that has turned not one but two programs around in this sense. In this case, Bruce Boudreau did that. Bruce Boudreau is a coach that has done that time and time again, and he's somebody that I really like. That's the first name that comes to my mind. Gallant formerly of the Vegas Golden Knights. First name's not coming to me. Sorry about that. But, as far as a head coach that arguably shouldn't have been fired due to the success that he had with the expansion franchise known then as the, obviously, Vegas Golden Knights. They were an expansion franchise that plucked talent from each and every NHL club, and Gallant made the most of it. He maximized the talent that he had. We need a coach that has to literally be in charge of rebuilding this team from the ground up. And Rob Ray and Craig Rivet and Andrew Peters on the Instigators this morning said that this is not a rebuild. If it's not a rebuild, what is it? If it's not a rebuild, is it a revamp? It's not a revamp when you're saying, in the words of Craig Rivet, that we should trade guys like Jack Eichel and Sam Reinhart and Rasmus Ristolainen. 2 out of 3 of those guys, I agree with you on. 2 out of 3 of those guys, Rasmus Ristolainen, I think he needs a fresh start. Sam Reinhart, you can get something for him because he has been productive since he stepped foot on that Sabres ice at KeyBank Arena. Jack Eichel, I'm just not on board with trading him just yet. I feel like right now is probably the worst time to force a trade with Jack Eichel due to the fact that his value is completely lowered due to the season that he has had and due to the season that the Sabres have had. And I just don't know if you would get the maximum trade package back for a season that Jack Eichel has had, this past season. I think that there's a lot of validity to just cleaning the whole thing and emptying the cupboard. I get that, but be a very tough sell for other impending free agents to come here to make this team better as it is, let alone without Jack Eichel. It would make it that much tougher to attract, incoming free agents if Jack Eichel is not here. So, that's where I'm at as far as that goes. If they make that decision, if they make that trade, if they decide to trade Jack Eichel, it's going to be a very tough day for me as a fan to swallow that pill and say to myself, can I continue to do this? Can I continue to believe that this team is ever going to turn it around when we just went through the last, 5-6 years that we have, gone through tanking for either McDavid or Jack Eichel? We tank for one of those guys. We get one of them. We get Eichel. We lose that lottery, but Jack Eichel, it's not like the Sabres missed on Jack Eichel. He is one of the most talented players in the world. And no matter what happens, whether he stays here, whether he goes, I don't question his talent. You can't question his talent. It's more so the organization and how it's functioned and the dysfunction of mismanaging their GM hires or mismanaging their coaching hire, just mismanaging the roster more than anything, putting people in charge that have mismanaged the roster off the ice in terms of the GM bringing in the right talent and the coach putting together the right scoring combinations or defensive combinations game in and game out. And that I'm hoping that the interim coaches that are coming in here can just reset the whole thing and put Eichel and Skinner, if Eichel does come back, put Eichel and Skinner on the same line again, put things back the way they were just to see where we're at, mix things up a little bit. I think Middlestat and Skinner was a pretty solid combination these last few days, but I think that this is the experiment time to figure out who's staying, who's going. Ideally, I'd like to see Eichel stay, but we have to really, the thing that we have to focus on as Sabres fans is who is the next head coach. That has to be the decision that is, at the forefront of Kevin Adams' mind right now. I got to get this right. I got to bring in the right head coach. If I don't bring in the right head coach, everything else I do is for shit, is for nothing. It doesn't matter. I could bring in player A, B, C, or D. If we don't have the right coach, it's irrelevant. And, going into this regular season, this shortened season, I have to say that, I was super excited about this season for the Buffalo Sabres. I thought that Taylor Hall was a great addition. I thought that Eric Stahl was a nice, solid veteran leadership presence that this Sabres team was able to acquire, and it didn't matter. It didn't do anything. It resulted in nothing. And I think that going into this upcoming season, it's more about finding the right coach for the players that we have currently. That has to be the top priority of this franchise. And I can't say many glowing things about the Krueger era. It came and it went, and it wasn't pretty. So, hopefully the Sabres can finally get this right. It has been a complete dumpster fire for the Buffalo Sabres the last 10 years, and we got to get it right. So Doug says, during the coaching search, I think this is the first question that the candidates are going to ask. Are you going to trade Jack Eichel? Now, Doug, I want your response to this. I'm going to ask you to throw another comment down. My response to your question is this simple. If a head coaching candidate does want to trade Jack Eichel, for me, that question has to come from ownership. The ownership should already know whether they're trading Jack Eichel or not. Kevin Adams should know whether they're trading Jack Eichel or not. That decision shouldn't come from a new head coach. That decision for me should be made by ownership and the GM, and that decision dictates who they hire as their next head coach. I wouldn't put it in the hands of a possible head coach and candidate to come be the head coach of the Buffalo Sabres to decide something of that magnitude. Just my perspective on it. What do you say to that? Michael Trask says, do you really think a high-profile coach will want to coach here, or do they look at college coaches? I think a high-profile coach will want to come here in the sense that we have a high-profile generational talent, two of them, in Jack Eichel and Rasmus Dahlin. And fixing that, being responsible in fixing that, is something that I think a former head coach like a Bruce Boudreau would want to tackle on that, take on that challenge and tackle that challenge. It's a mighty challenge. There's no mistake about it. This team is a mess. But this next head coach has to be somebody that has a pedigree, can't be a first-time head coach, can't be a interim head coach that, was once an interim head coach that wants to get back into the league. This has to be a former head coach that has a solid pedigree of winning and losing, a guy that has understood what it means to take a loser and turn it into a winner. It sounds so simple, and it's somewhat stating the obvious, but the Sabres haven't been able to follow along with that process. They have not. They have failed mightily. They have gone against the grain and have chosen the latter, chosen a coach that had his feet wet for a little bit as an NHL head coach in Ralph Krueger. And I'm hopeful that they can turn this around. I have my doubts. I'm not feeling too optimistic, and that's kind of the bittersweet, end of this whole thing, is that I don't feel optimistic that the Sabres are going to turn this around. I will give credit where credit is due, though, in saying that Kevin Adams is a GM that I do respect the way he has handled this situation. This can't be an easy situation for him as a GM, and the media has, the Buffalo media has been hitting him hard with these questions. And I'm not saying the Buffalo media is wrong for doing that. I get it. I fully get it. I think that it's justifiable to have anger and questions and frustration with the direction of this team. But I think Kevin Adams has handled it extremely well in terms of how he's answered the questions. And he's got the biggest decision that he's ever made as a GM right in front of him. Who is he going to be next head coach? Doug says, no, what I meant is the coach is going to want to know what the future of Jack Eichel is, not that they would want to trade him. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, the coach is going to the incoming coach is going to have a say for sure. The incoming coach is going to have to go out on a limb and say, I want Eichel here, or I don't want Eichel here. That's a big factor. But I think if any coach that comes in here that knows how to evaluate player talent would want Jack Eichel here. It would set the team back mightily if they traded him. People can say what they want to say about his lack of leadership, and maybe he's not the greatest leader. Maybe he doesn't have the personality type to be a captain, to wear that C on his jersey. I won't disagree with that. I think that those are valid concerns given that he's been the captain of this team for X amount of years and the team has gone nowhere but down. There's reason to agree with that and to say that. But trading Jack Eichel, who is the most talented player on this team by far and is one of the top 10 players in the world today, as a basement-dwelling team to do that, I don't think there's a trade package out there that is justifiable for the Sabres in terms of getting third line or prospects or picks. I don't think that's worth it. I think there's other ways to add talent to this team by trading some pieces away. Guys that I would consider trading away would be Reinhart, would be Ristolainen. The goaltending situation here is abysmal. Brandon Montour is a guy that I would look to trade, who has value. Eric Stahl has value. Taylor Hall has value. All of those guys have value that I would highly expect Kevin Adams to go down that path of trading those guys. I don't think Jack Eichel is a part of that. That's just me. I'm Ryan Thomas. It was the Buffalo Sports Bonanza episode where I went into the Buffalo Bills' recent signings of Emmanuel Sanders and Matt Hack, punter Matt Hack, formerly of the Miami Dolphins, now in Buffalo, as well as the breaking news: the Buffalo Sabres have fired head coach Ralph Krueger, and the head coaching search for the Sabres starts all over again, right back to square one. Ryan Thomas here saying so long, take care, stay safe, and happy St. Patrick's Day.